Trump University. Did you oversell that?
Let me just tell you, it's just crazy what's going on. So we opened a school. We opened a school that was very successful, had a lot of students, and they did valuation reports after they left. And we have thousands and thousands of valuation reports. Everybody's saying it was great. They loved it. They loved it. I don't know if you ever heard this, but we have thousands of them.
So why are you getting sued?
Because a class action firm from California, who I hear gave Eric Schneiderman a lot of money to run, who I hear paid Hillary Clinton $900,000. This is all stuff that's going to come out that you don't hear, but I hear they paid her $900,000 for speeches. I hear they are.
Who did?
The firm that brought the lawsuit.
Law firm
paid Hillary Clinton $900,000, as I understand it, for speeches. They paid her a lot of money for her campaign. I heard $400,000 or $500,000 for her campaign. It's a very political thing. I have a judge who is truly unfair. I don't know the judge, but he's truly unfair in San Diego federal.
Why did you refer to his ethnicity, Donald?
Well, because his heritage is Mexican.
So
what? Well, because I want to build a wall. And I'm getting along great, I think, with Hispanics, but I want to build a wall. There's some people that don't like that.
Some of the numbers don't indicate that. Do you think you have to dial it back?
Look, I have to be what I have to be. I mean, I have to tell the truth. I'm going to say that you need the wall. You know, I don't know if you saw what happened yesterday, but the 16,500 Border Patrol agents endorsed me. First time they've ever endorsed a presidential candidate.
They believe in you.
And I asked them about the wall. I said, let me ask you, how important is that? They said, Mr. Trump, it's so important. You need it. So, you know, people, I can understand people, but he's of Mexican heritage. I hope he's going to be fair, but he's treated me very unfairly. This is a case that should have been won on summary judgment. When you have the people that are suing you saying great things about the course in writing, and sometimes on tape, where they were actually on tape saying great things about, when the person that brought the suit was just dismissed from the case because she was such a bad witness, because she said all these positive things about the course, and she was just dismissed by this judge from the case. Well, if she dismissed him, if she was dismissed, he should have dismissed the whole case. The woman that brought the case, when we got to her deposition, we found her written word saying unbelievably positive things about the school. It was great. She evaluated it as great. She's then on tape. We have a tape where she's saying the most beautiful things about it. Nobody's forcing her. So they go to court and they see the judge and they say, Your Honor, we don't want her to be in the case anymore. So why wouldn't the case be dismissed?
Right.
The judge dismisses her from the case.
And lets the case stand.
And lets the case go.
Well,
he's been so unfair, and I don't want to call out a judge, but he's been so unfair. Now, maybe that'll change. Maybe he'll be fair. I would say he should recuse himself.
But, Donald, you have a lot of money. Why don't you just pay them off and call it a day? You don't need this.
I could have settled this case. I could now settle this case, but I could have settled this case. I chose not to. The reason is when this woman came to us, she wanted $300,000, which would have been $200,000. And they showed me, I said, why would she get that much money? For what? And then they showed me her records. And her record said, evaluation report, loved the school, great, 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 everything good. I'm not quoting exactly, but everything top, 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 as though she went to Harvard. Harvard should get such good reviews, okay? And then they showed me a tape of her saying great things about the school. I said, wait a minute, how can you give her money? I said, let the lawsuit proceed.
It's the principle.
It's the principle.
Okay.
It would have been cheaper, but it's the principle.
Okay, but you would have had a much easier week.
But how do you let... Whatever.
I mean, the sleeves, you're a real beaut.
Can I tell
when
you
I saw you say that, I mean, I had to laugh.
Well, that had to do with the veterans, though, because I've given the veterans so much money and I was criticized for it.
Okay, let's talk.
You know what that does, though? The one thing that does, people like me, people that have the option of raising $5 or $6 million for veterans and other causes, when they see what I go through by doing a great job and then what I go through where the crooked Washington Post, which the paper is such a bad paper, it's so dishonest, and the New York Times, they wrote a story about me with women. And the women came out and they, I mean, I was so honored with Roanne and with, you know, the whole...
Did you remember her?
I did. She was a very nice person. And all of them. I mean, and I was so surprised.
You know,
and then
Donald,
they came out.
But people who work for you love you. I was in Trump Tower. I asked some guy, how does he treat you? Because he was an employee. He says, he treats us great. And then I said, how's he treat the women? He said, better.
Well, you know, two things. So they write this article. It's on the front page of the New York Times, like the top. It looked like the National Enquirer. I know. National Enquirer is better. But it looked like the National Enquirer. Massive picture. And I said, what's this all about? And then I see the women, and I say, why would they say anything bad? And then they all came out and they said, we didn't say. And then the same writer, who should have been fired, by the way, for what he did, because they said that's not what we said, he knows that's not what we meant and implied. Then the same writer writes another story about me a week later that was also a hit. Look, these papers are really dishonest. The media is very dishonest. And I'll tell you, when I find a good journalist, a really fair journalist, I cherish that person because that's a really important profession. I have such respect for a good journalist, but there are very few of them.
Why is it that you've got the President of the United States who is coming out and basically saying all these horrible things about you? I've never seen that in history. I mean, this early on, where the guy is coming out and trashing you. Why?
Well, he's coming out. He's actually trying not to use my name because he's not supposed to. You know, he ought to really focus on his job because he's doing a lousy job as president. And what he should do is focus on his job and find out why are we losing so many jobs. You know, the number 5% is a total phony number. It's really 20% or close to 20% unemployment. That's just a phony number to make the politicians look good. It's if you look for a job, Jeanine, and you don't find it, and you give up, and you go home, and you go to sleep.
You're still unemployed, but you're not a statistic.
You're not a statistic,
right.
okay?
But
it's a total phony number. And when I get 25 and 30,000 people to my rallies, they're not there just because I'm going to have strong borders and because I'm going to have a strong military. It certainly helps. But they're there because the economy is horrible for them and because these people literally haven't had a pay increase in decades.
What kind of pay increase should they get?
They should get good pay. Look, we need jobs in this country. When you see Carrier leaving for Mexico, when you see Ford building massive plants all over Mexico, when you see the PGA Tour take out of Miami
to Mexico,
they took their championship, their World Golf Championship, and they took it to Mexico, which is unsafe, by the way. I mean, you know, they had a tournament in Mexico. People were being mugged and robbed and all sorts of things were happening. I can't imagine the players are going to be thrilled. But, I mean, from my standpoint, I don't care. What I care is they took it from Miami. The people of Miami are incensed. They took it from Miami and they moved it to Mexico City, which has one of the highest crime rates in the world.
No doubt.
It's going to be very interesting to see how those players feel.
Let's talk about the most recent Quinnipiac poll. Your unfavorable's around 50, her unfavorable's about 50. Who has a better chance of flipping the haters? Do you have a better chance of flipping the Hillary haters to your side, or does she get a better chance of flipping your haters?
I think I do, because people know that she's incompetent. People know that she can't do the job. They know one thing about me. I'm very competent. I can do the job. Look, I borrowed $1 million, and it's worth now $10 billion. And I filed all of my documents. I filed with the federal elections, the biggest filing they've ever had. And it talks about this great company that I've built. I built a great company, very little debt, tremendous assets, tremendous.
Can you make America great again?
I can totally make America great again, and that's why I'm doing it. I mean, it's lovely to be with you, but I'd rather be with you without all the cameras. I mean, to be honest with you, it's doing this isn't fun. Doing campaigning isn't fun, although I think maybe I'm having as good a time as anyone's ever had. But still, it's a lot of work. I'm going from here. I'm going to make a major speech. I have 25,000 people.
Everywhere you go, there's 25,000, 30,000
By the way, that's the other thing. We have the biggest crowds by far. If you listen, like the other night, I had a crowd of 11,000. Bernie had 3,000 at a different location. They said Bernie Sanders had this massive crowd. With me, it was Donald Trump spoke tonight.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me ask you about Bernie. You're a New Yorker, in your face, you know, tough guy. Why won't you debate Bernie?
Well, I was asked the question by Jimmy, and we had a lot of fun. And I said, let the networks put up some money. Mm-hmm. And I said, like, maybe women's health issues, okay? Okay, I did it for the vets. Let's do something for women's health issues. And number one, the networks did not come through. They want to keep the money for themselves. They would make so much money. That would get such ratings. And I would actually love to debate him. The problem is he's number two. And to debate number two when you have number one doesn't really make a lot of sense.
What do you say to those people who say the reason you're not debating Bernie is because you don't want to, you know, have a fight off and in the hopes of getting his followers who will never vote for Hillary?
Well, the other thing is I don't really want to hit Bernie too hard because I think a lot of Bernie's people are going to come to me. See, Bernie and I are very different, but we're very similar in one thing. It's called trade. He understands what no other Democrat really understands or will say, that the United States is getting ripped off big league on trade. He understands that. I give him credit for that. Now, the difference is I can do something about it. I'll make great trade deals. He can't do that. He wouldn't know where to begin. But That's a big factor. Bernie and I agree on one thing big. The United States is being ripped off on trade. And I'm not looking to hit Bernie too hard because I would like to get his followers. I would, you know. Now, I don't know who she's going to pick. I mean, she may pick Bernie. She may pick Pocahontas from, you know, the phony Native American.
Let's talk about the name calling.
Yeah, well, it's fine. I mean, look,
okay.
She's, you know, you have more Indian blood than she has, okay?
And I don't have any.
Okay, well, that's more than
Do
she
you?
has. I have none, but I have more than her, okay? Yeah. No, she did that. That's like a fraud. She
Yeah,
said
when she was at Harvard,
she said,
so
no,
she
I
could
have
get
high
it.
cheekbones. So she got into Harvard or one of these schools.
Yeah, it was a Harvard
and,
thing.
you know, she said she was a minority. That's a fraud.
But,
I mean,
but if she were to run, you're not, I mean, she's no threat at all.
I wouldn't mind if she ran. No, I'd like her to run.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like her to run.
Okay, now, not only have you taken down the establishment, Donald, you discuss things that people only whisper about. All right, you're strong, you're smart, you've got great instincts, you've got great intuition. What do you say to those people who say that, as it relates to foreign policy, that you will just make a decision and not have a cabinet that includes people who don't agree with you?
Well, you've known me for a long time. That's not the way you act. I have a lot of people. Ultimately, I'll make the decision, but I'll have a lot of good people. But I get a kick when they say, oh, well, he doesn't have the people that have been there for the last 10 years. Who wants those people? Look at the mess the world is in. We have the migration. We have Syria. We have Iraq as a disaster. We have all these things. There's nothing good. If the politicians never entered office for the last 15 years, that includes Obama and it includes people more than Obama, you wouldn't have the problems that you have today. I mean, just take a look. I always say, if our presidents would have gone to the beach and just gone to the beach and not done anything, we'd be in better shape. Jeanine, the country is a mess. The world is a mess. We helped make the world a mess. Going into Iraq was a disastrous decision, maybe the worst decision ever in the history of our country. Number two, getting out of Iraq the way Obama did it, he didn't have a clue. And now you have, I mean, then she got into Libya. And by the way, who has the Libyan oil? I'll tell you who has it. ISIS has it.
Right.
And it's great oil, by the way. It's the highest quality oil you can get. So ISIS now has the oil that Hillary Clinton gave them by going in and doing that stupid, you know, that stupid attack on Libya. Just the world was crushing, and she goes and wants to do more. She doesn't have a clue. She doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't have the strength, the energy. She cannot be president.
Let's talk about strength and energy. How are you doing it? Number one, you're accessible. You're on radio. You're on television. I mean, you're here with me now. I mean, you're in California campaigning, and you're sitting down with me. I mean, do you ever sleep?
Well, I don't sleep that much. I mean, I get 4 or 5 hours, but I just seem to have strength. I love what I do. You know, my father used to say, you gotta love what you do, and I say it all the time. I love what I do. I'm having fun doing this. I mean, it's brutal in a sense, but I have fun doing this.
Next, Donald Trump tells me